Winston Peters has addressed critics of New Zealand's questions around joining a part of AUKUS, suggesting they don't have up-to-date information about the threats to security for this country. Former Prime Minister Helen Clarke is among those who have said joining the pact could negatively impact our foreign policy independence. Peters has reaffirmed the government is looking into the alliance, but that much needs to be clarified before we join. Former Prime Minister Helen Clarke is with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So Winston Peters has sent out a few barbs towards critics. Do you see them as being aimed at yourself?
I thought his speech was really very, very defensive. And he was walking back on comments that he made in Washington, D.C., where he got somewhat ahead of himself and the government. So when he was with Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State in Washington, D.C., he said there were, quote, powerful reasons for New Zealand engaging with AUKUS. Now, he would not elaborate any powerful reasons last night. He claimed that they were still just exploring the issues, and then abused those who are criticising the proposal for not having information he won't share, and now doesn't really want to stand by what he said in Washington, D.C.
Do you think it's fair to expect him to share that information when a lot of it would be around security issues and threats that the public perhaps shouldn't be privy to?
Not at all. When you stand with the Secretary of State and say, quote, there are powerful reasons for engaging with AUKUS, you owe it to the Kiwi public to say what those reasons are. And we're not hearing that. We're hearing a lot of bluster, a lot of personal abuse. Put that aside. There are some real questions to be answered. Is this aligning New Zealand with the second pillar of an agreement which Australia, the US, and the UK have for nuclear submarine technology? What would we be up for? What would be the expectations of extra spending by New Zealand on defence at the very time when so many vital areas of public spending are being cut? What are the implications for our relationship with our major trading partner? Huge questions, and we're not getting any appropriate answers to them.
The Foreign Minister said that we can still have foreign policy alignments and then still be independent and make our own decisions. Do you think being part of Pillar 2 really would bind us to those alignments, or would we still be able to make our own decisions and have foreign policy independence?
I think we would be on a very, very slippery slope. The way New Zealand's been positioned since ANZUS stopped being operationally significant for us, like George Shultz said, we part as friends, but we part with respect to ANZUS. We have been on our own. We have the Australian defence relationship, which is natural across the Tasman. We have no security guarantee from the United States of any kind, and frankly, it hasn't been missed. What we've been able to do is make up our own mind on where we get involved and where we don't, and you can debate the wisdom of those decisions, but we do make up our own mind. When I was Prime Minister, we did send military to Afghanistan. We refused to be part of the invasion of Iraq. We had that level of independence. If you start the slippery slope of going into relationships like AUKUS-associated one, you start to build expectations that you will put your hand up when others want you to. That led us to Vietnam, it's led us to other things. And I think it's a slippery slope we don't want to slide down.
Winston Peters is painting critics as being out of touch, and he says, seduced by old battles. What do you think of that?
Well, I saw that a source in the National Caucus told Richard Harman a few weeks ago that Winston's position was a sort of mixture of opportunism and nostalgia. So I think maybe it's a reaction to that label. Look, I have engaged in foreign policy and security policy for a very, very long time. I've been extensively briefed over many years by New Zealand and other intelligence officials. I keep very close connections geopolitically around the world. I'm well aware of what I'm talking about. And what I'm not going to buy into is that the world is suddenly such a dangerous place that New Zealand needs to scurry off to the comfort of arrangements that it had for, World War I and II and the Korean War and the Vietnam War. This is frankly ridiculous.
So are you saying don't even go through the information gathering process, we can just rule this out now?
Well, I felt that the previous government would have been better not to go down the exploring route. I think that if New Zealand needs military equipment, it has a range of relationships through which it can procure those. I think AUKUS is really a huge step up in the sophistication of offensive weaponry. And I question whether that's an appropriate level of investment and expenditure and the kind of purchases that New Zealand would want to be making.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. That is former Prime Minister Helen Clarke.